Okay, hello everyone. Greetings, my name is Annie Gibson and I am the Director of Study Abroad at Tulane University. And I want to start by welcoming you all here today. We are gathered for this virtual healing rituals from around the world ceremony. And I am here with my staff from the Office of Study Abroad. We are joining you from New Orleans, which is physically located in the region that we know as Bulbancha, which is a Choctaw term, which means the place of many tongues. This place was originally inhabited by the Chitimacha Nation. Prior to 1718, it served as an important port and trading hub for more than 40 diverse peoples, including the Atacapa, the Caddo, the Choctaw, Homa, Natchez, and Tunica nations. So today we pay respect to these communities and their continuing presence in the homeland and throughout their historical diaspora. So I want to start with that because today we're going to contemplate the healing rituals of the places where we've traveled. And whenever we do this, whenever we travel, it's always done with a reference back to the rituals from the places that we know. Each one of us joins from a place that has a unique history. So wherever you are in the world right now, think about that. What are the unique healing rituals from the places where you're joining us from? And so we invite you to be present with that today. So I want you all to kind of take a moment and settle in. Many of you have been working all day. So my staff, just feel free to shake it out a little bit, rest your eyes if you need to, so that we can really be present today to think about these rituals that are important for us in our day to day. And do what you need to do to be present. So here in the land of Bulbancha, New Orleans, healing ceremonies happened in a place called a hobichi. It's kind of a sweat lodge. So imagine that we are here in our virtual hobichi, all of us, and we're seated in our virtual circle, and we're underneath a dome structure. There's some willow branches above us, and it's covered with blankets and tarps. And in the circle, we have some lava rocks. These rocks in our center, they're called grandfather rocks. And we heat these rocks up, and they're stacked in a pit, and they're becoming red hot. And myself, as the conductor of our ritual here today, I'll pour some water on the rocks, and so it'll be enveloped in this mist. And so here we are today in our hobichi here in the Bulbancha, and we are saying prayers and we are singing songs in the Choctaw nation. But what's so interesting about the Choctaw is whenever they did healing rituals, they always sang songs from other tribes. They thought that was a really important part of giving offerings for other settings. And so I really love that about New Orleans history, about Bulbancha history, that it is offering up of healing rituals and songs from other tribes and from other places that is part of that spiritual healing process. So what we're going to do is talk about some of those healing rituals that have affected us across our different journeys for those of us at the Office of Study Abroad, and offer up in this little space some time to talk to you about those healing rituals that share common elements. They remind us that the body and the mind and the spirit really come together for a true healing that embodies the whole person. Sometimes traditions morph. We don't know exactly how they originate, but over time they take on a new life with oral tradition. And many of us have experienced miracles of some of these healings as well. And as we travel, we have opportunities to kind of see these rituals, to be a part, to reconceptualize our own lives and what we think is holy and sacred. So being invited to take a part in such ceremonies really helps you open up and engage to thinking about rituals in a new way. You have to think about navigating the power structures about where you are, are you on the inside? Are you on the outside? How do you navigate that? So in this moment in society where we all are in the need of a little healing, let's offer up that space to think about those things that we have been a part of, that have been important to us in other lands. So I'm going to invite all of you on the Zoom call when you're ready to offer up whatever experience that you may have heard about or been a part of that has been important to you. And when you're ready to share, you can just raise your little hand emoji, and I'll call on you. Okay, so that's how we'll keep it going. But I'll talk to you first. So I became really interested in these rituals called milagros, or in Cuba and in Mexico, all over Latin America. I have some little examples that it'll be hard to see online, but sometimes when you go to the churches in Latin America, you can see these little like body figure pieces that people have. And I loved collecting those. And I was curious when I was younger, why do people put these little offerings in the churches or whatever where they go? And it's a tradition that was imported from the Spaniards to Latin America. It was important in the Mediterranean tradition in Europe. But interestingly, Latin America had its own indigenous practices of the ways in which people were united with their spirit world. And so they kind of incorporated indigenous beliefs with beliefs about from the Catholic Church tradition. And so these were milagros. These are like little miracles that you offer. So like the arm, if you break your arm and you need God to help you fix it, you give an offering to the saints so that they can help fix it. Here's a penis. I liked the penis. I thought the penis was fun. Can you see it? It's got, see, they have all different kinds of things that you would see as offerings. And then the other thing that these are offered that you'll often see is that they'll even be like painted. They paint them on plaques like this. These different offerings that they would put in churches to when you've been healed. So and what's really beautiful about these is they really start to narrate what's going on in the lives of everyday people. So here's one about, I love mermaids. This one was left as an offering to a church. I found it in this little market in Mexico, that of a mermaid that was hit by the rocks, and the Virgin of Guadalupe came and saved the mermaid. And so they put an offering to them for thanking them for saving the mermaid. And then I showed you this one that was, it was an offering for a man who was finally able to get married to his husband and be accepted, and thanking the gods, the church for the Virgin of Hidalgo for doing that. And when Hurricane Katrina happened, my mom knew how much I love these, and she made one for me for keeping me safe from the waters in Hurricane Katrina. So here's my own little mermaid, or my own little retablo of me getting brought to safety. So this like ritual of, when you have a miracle or thinking about, this moment of prayer to help you get things. And I always think about this when I am in need of a moment of like taking a step and relaxing, I pull out my little milagros and they become important to me. So that's one of my rituals. Would anyone else like to share something that they have experienced somewhere? Ching. Go ahead, Ching, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I have a little presentation prepared. Should I go ahead and share my screen?
Sure. Let me make it so you can share. There you go. Try now.
All right, can you guys see it?
Yes.
So I will be talking about the rituals that we do during Chinese New Year. I'm not sure how to do the presentation thing. Anyway, we'll just talk like this. So it happened about 4 weeks ago. And this year is the year of the ox. Right here. So Chinese New Year is also known as Spring Festival. It's the most celebrated festival in China and has a long history, about 3,000 years, and it originated from people worshiping the earth and heaven. Now it's becoming a ritual. over the years, people add rituals, people add new traditions, and now we have this whole festive festival that we do everything together. So I will be talking about a couple of the legends of how this new year became a thing, and how it connect to the healing rituals. So originally, according to Chinese legend, there is a monster named Nian who live in the ocean, and he lived there all year. On New Year's Eve, he will crawl out and then he will destroy villages, he will eat people, he will spread illness to everyone. He's just an evil, evil creature. And people are so scared of him and they live in fear every day. And New Year's was just a horrible day for them until one day, one year, there's this really, really old man. He discovered by accident that the monster is scared of the color red and then also scared of red, loud noises. And for this reason, everyone will put red papers on their doors, they will hang up red lanterns, and they will light bamboos on fire to create the popping sound. And then the monster never show up again. So years after year, now it become a tradition that during New Year's time that you put on red, you wear red clothes, you put lanterns everywhere, and then you light firecrackers to create those sound to scare away the evil spirits and keep health and prosperity for the upcoming year. And many of you guys know that Chinese culture that we give red envelopes during Chinese New Year as well. And that is also connected to another monster named Sui. So this monster, he is specialized in scaring children. So when children fall asleep, he will crawl up and he will scare them. Then the children will become mentally unable to process all of it and just becoming a little wild afterwards. So to combat the monster, Asian Chinese parents will give them coins and red paper to play with, so they stay up and not be harmed by the monster. Sometimes when children will eventually fall asleep, the monster will crawl up, but then the coin will emit a strong light and scare the monster away because the coin was blessed by Chinese goddess in the universe. So this eventually become a tradition now that you give children red envelope filled with money, and as a way for them to be shield from the monster and also bring good luck in the upcoming year. And we also have some food rituals during Chinese New Year that we serve a lot of dishes during Chinese New Year. Each dish have a symbolic meaning behind it. So one of the dish that you'll see in all Chinese New Year tables is fish. Fish in Chinese sounds like leftover or surplus. And when you serve fish, it means that next year you will also have something left over at the end of the year. So you'll have a little bit surplus. Dumplings is another lucky item that we have in our Chinese New Year table. And in my mom's hometown, that what people do with that, they'll wrap little coin and peanuts inside of the dumplings. So, and this assigned randomly. So when you get a peanut out of your dumpling, that means you're gonna have good health in the upcoming year. And then if you get coin, that means you're gonna make a lot of money. So yeah, and just to tie all of my traditions to our study abroad programs. If you are interested, we do offer a program in Shanghai, and then you can study the Chinese language, and they have internship opportunities, and you can take electives in many, many different areas, and you'll be paired with a local roommate where you can practice your Chinese. And no language prerequisites, so you don't have to know how to speak Chinese before you go. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ching.
You're welcome. Stop sharing.
Do we have someone else who would like to share a ritual for us?
I can go next.
Great.
So my ritual that I'm going to be talking about are Irish fairy trees. So Irish folklore is a really important part of Irish culture and Irish tradition. And I thought because New Orleans has such a rich history of Irish immigration, this would be a cool thing to talk about, particularly with St. Patrick's Day coming up this week. But fairy trees are a really interesting part of Irish folklore. They're basically seen as these portals where two worlds join. So, the story is that back way long ago, the Tuatha, I'm so bad at pronouncing Irish, I'm sorry, the Tuatha Danann, which is spelled quite differently than that, as you can imagine. They are basically like these otherworldly sort of capricious beings that clashed with the original Irish people, the Gaels, and were forced to go to this underworld or retreat to this other world where they can only return through these certain portals and make mischief or help people depending on whether or not they're adhering to these certain domestic rituals, right? And fairy trees are seen as one of those portals where those two worlds meet and the fairies can re-enter the world. So one thing that you'll often see when you're driving through the Irish countryside is like a full field full of sheep. The whole thing has been plowed. There's nothing, but there's like one tree just smack in the middle of the field. And you're sort of looking at it like, why didn't they remove that tree? But it's usually a hawthorn tree or an ash tree. And they're seen as these places like sacred spaces where if you tear down that tree, you're inviting a whole host of bad things to happen to you, right? So if you tie a little piece of string, a little piece of cloth, like from an old shirt or an old scarf, as an offering to the fairies onto that tree, and then you could have good luck all year. You could be lucky in love. You could have financial luck. Your business could take off. And by contrast, if you were to chop down a fairy tree, you could have your baby snatched from you and replaced with a changeling. Or if you tear down a tree in trying to build a road, let's say, that construction project could go bankrupt. Or famously, like, do you know the car company DeLorean, like the Back to the Future car? Famously, they built a plant in Belfast and they tore down a fairy tree to build that plant and then went bankrupt. So people say that that's the reason that DeLorean went bankrupt, is because of that fairy tree in Belfast. And actually entire construction projects in Ireland are often like rerouted. You might see a highway that was supposed to be completely straight, and then there's just this random like whoop, like horseshoe where it goes around a known fairy tree because the local people have said you cannot mess with that tree. So it's still very much in the common vernacular and very much something that people still believe in to this day. And I am not personally often a believer in like things that are superstitious or otherworldly or anything like that, but I have been to 2 different fairy trees in the Irish countryside, and at one I saw 3 foxes all in a row, which is like not a common thing that you would ever see. A, to see a fox in like the middle of the day, and B, to see 3 of them all in a row. And then the other one that I saw here, let me see if I can share my screen really quick. So the other one that we saw when we went as a group on our Summer in Dublin program, we were going to see this like circle of stones, this very ancient place, and there was a fairy tree right next to it. And one of the things that we saw just waltzed right up like into the middle of our group was this little dog. So here, let me see if I can share. So this little dog just like walked right up into the middle of us. 3-legged dog just walked up and just like sat with us and hung out with us for the rest of the time that we were there. So, and you can see the tree right there. So again, not one to believe in superstitious things, but I do tend to adhere to the belief that tying something to a fairy tree can't hurt. So yeah, that's my tradition.
Thanks, Meredith. I love fairy trees. I have some in my backyard. I've kind of made some little fairy things. And I love it when kids come over because they love to add little pieces. Sienna or Hannah or Joni, any other to add?
Yeah, sure. So I guess mine's a lot more personal, but my first study abroad was over the summer when I was 15 or 16, and I was in Japan. And my family's from Japan, but we don't see them a lot because it's very far away. But it was the first, I guess, like the 1 year anniversary of my grandfather's death. So it would have been his first time being memorialized in the Obon Festival. And so it's very similar to almost like Day of the Dead, where your ancestral spirits are going to come back and visit you. You clean up the altar. But I think from a very like personal angle, kind of being able to like be there, be with my family, like my host family, like stuck me on a train and said, go for it. Just being able to be there and be part of this like very long-standing ritual was a really nice way to feel like, okay, well, wasn't able to be there for all of these specific funeral days or get to meet him a bunch, but to be there kind of in this way was very nice, very healing.
Thanks, Sienna. Anyone else on the call have any rituals that they've been a part of in any of their travels that they'd like to share? Hannah?
So I'm not sure if this counts as a ritual, but I'm also going to pull from like personal experience. So my family is German. And it's not so much ritual as like respecting superstitions. So it's not that we do things expressly to like keep evil away, but it's that we do things to avoid inviting it in. So things like one that is very big in my family is for birthdays. I know a lot of people usually will say, "Oh, happy birthday," when it's a week away. But in Germany, that's like really bad luck, is wishing someone happy birthday before it happens, because then it's like, oh, well, so much could happen in between that time that like you're kind of wishing evil on someone if you say that. So it's just like interesting little things like that that kind of keep evil away, but not in like a active way, just in more of a avoiding certain actions, certain things. Just thought that'd be fun to share.
That's great. Thanks. Anyone else have anything that feel called to share in terms of rituals? Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing all those. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, in the following in Ching's footsteps, if you could highlight any study abroad programs that we have in the country of the place that you mentioned. So I talked about Latin America, but specifically, you see this tradition a lot in Mexico. So we have a program at ITAM in Mexico City. So if you want to, anywhere you travel in Mexico and go to small churches, you will likely see some of these milagros that I mentioned. So, we have a semester program, fall and spring, in ITAM in Mexico City. And we have programs in other parts of Latin America where you could see examples of this too. You can see it on programs in Cuba as well, though they look a little bit different. The offerings often have much more influence from the Afro diaspora. So they often have they're often plant offerings, plants or metal or little, it might be a little pouch like this, but it would be filled with herbs or things like that rather than metal, which is where you see in a lot of the Catholic ceremonies. So we have a program in Cuba. It's a faculty-led program in the fall, and we also work with study abroad providers in Cuba and other semesters. So it's a great place to see some of that firsthand.
I think I was next in the order, so I can go. So I mentioned briefly, we have a Summer in Dublin program, and on that program, it's a month long. We go, typically we stay in Dublin at UCD, but we go on a 4-day field trip, usually that sort of goes all around the Irish countryside. So you get a really good view of some ancient sites. We visit fairy trees, we visit dolmens, ancient burial mounds, beehive huts, all these really cool things that are just scattered across the countryside. And in addition to the summer program, we also have semester and year-long programs at a lot of direct enroll institutions in Ireland. University College Dublin has a really great archaeology anthropology program. So if you're interested in Irish folklore, that or Trinity College in Dublin would be really great options. The Book of Kells is housed at Trinity College. That's a really important book in terms of establishing this mixture in Ireland of Catholicism, Christianity, and like pagan and earth-tied rituals. University College Cork and National University of Ireland in Galway would also be really good ones in terms of finding out more about Irish mythology, Irish folklore, all of that good stuff.
Thank you. Sienna?
Yeah, so we have 3 programs in Japan, technically 4. There's one that's not listed on our website, but is applicable under the CIE general application rule. And they all kind of range from different styles. There's some, if you're really interested in going to Asia, or if you're an Asian studies major or minor, that really focus on and can get you much more immersed academically in all of just Japanese culture. I mean, there's 2,000 something plus years to go through. It's a lot. And there's also Temple University Japan, which I think is growing in popularity just because it offers a really wide variety of classes. And I think students aren't expecting to see like, oh, I could do a bunch of psychology classes and econ classes here. And so there's a lot of different options. The CIE Tokyo program would let you actually attend a full Japanese university, but the courses are all taught in English. And that's kind of the common denominator between everything is it's all taught in English. You might have to take a Japanese class, but I promise Japanese is a really easy language to speak. It's just hard to write. And I think Hannah could probably back me up on that one. But yeah, there's a lot of options.
Great. Hannah, Hannah's a student worker. Can you tell us anything about from a student perspective about programs in Germany or other study abroad programs that you think that students should know?
Yeah, so there's actually 4 study abroad programs through us in Germany, and a majority of them are in Berlin, which I think is a really great way to kind of get to know the culture and like the city specifically, because it's obviously the capital of Germany. So lots goes on there. There's so much history from all the wars and all the Great Wall that came down, the Iron Curtain, there we go. Just lots of history, lots of cool stuff. And then because superstitions are kind of such a part of life over there, like just getting into the local culture in the city, you can really get to know the German people. So I think those are great opportunities.
Wonderful. So I really appreciate you all being here today. I'm going to ask as we close out can you type in the chat, anyone here, is there a ritual that you've not seen, but you really are interested in seeing one day from another place? Can you think of anything that you wish that you had the opportunity to see or be a part of? Even if it's one that was shared today. No pressure. I know for me, I've always wanted to see the didgeridoo in Australia. I really like that idea of, you throw something out and it comes back to you. And we think of it just as a sport, but it actually has a very ritual and healing process and ceremony that goes around with it too. And Hannah adds that she really wants to see some of the Aboriginal rituals in Australia. And Ching has the fairy tree on the bucket list that I think is on mine too. In any of the rituals that you all shared, do you remember having an intercultural moment that you had to navigate when you experienced it?
Yeah, I think I sort of touched on this when I talked about mine, but I think like the um coming in with this sense of like, oh, this is just like a fun thing that people do. People don't actually believe that there are fairies. But you know, some people, especially people in the country, like really do hold to those beliefs. um, and sort of like seeing, even if I don't necessarily believe in like the physicality of, you know, a fairy or, you know, a puka or whatever, you know, the little creature might be. I think there's a real sense of like learning and understanding a culture and recognizing the importance of the ritual, regardless of whether or not you are an adherent to that particular faith, right? Realizing that there's cultural capital and a lot of meaning and history behind whatever the ritual might be, and to respect that. So yeah.
Great. And I know for myself, having, you know, I've enjoyed and collected and thought about milagros for a long time, because I learned about them when I was pretty young, and I have thought a lot about one, as Meredith thought, kind of the moment of the ritual. And you know, as when people leave these in the churches, they're often going through a pilgrimage related with that experience, or you know, they've gone through a miracle themselves, and so there's a particular way in which they leave the offering. And if you watch someone in their process of leaving it, there's an amount of space that you should give them during that moment and things like that. So I've thought a lot about that. And then I've also thought about kind of the collecting of artifacts, right? Like the collecting, you know, having these of my own, you know. This is one collected for farm workers, undocumented immigrants, and being kept safe from immigration, for example. And, you know, what it means to have these things as a private, you know, collection, or how do we, these moments of kind of the rituals like this, and this kind of ritual is a really important example. It's a very personal relationship, that person with their God and with their offerings. And so, and then, you know, they also orbit as a commodity in a climate. And so, you know, where there's issues of power and privilege to navigate with that and think through in interesting ways. Anyone else have anything else about their rituals, or something that they've thought about now that they'd like to share that they haven't shared yet?
I think there's always a certain challenge for, you know, people who do heritage study abroad, just because so much, especially if you grew up in the US where there's a lot of different cultures, that a lot of the time you're inhabiting this identity of both host and guest when you're doing a heritage study abroad. So, you know, it's like here in America, I am Asian, I am Japanese, I am these things, but also distinctly removed from everything else. So actually being in where you feel like you should be from is a very jarring experience. So I think it was really good for me to navigate that, especially at kind of a younger age, and kind of think through everything and choose it to be a way to engage with my own heritage long term, while also still not knowing everything and kind of like working towards making peace with that. I saw it on TikTok, but it was of I think, Cambodian American artist who made a series of projections of her grandmother in her like traditional Cambodian like garments, and then it projected onto an image of her mother, and then it continued just kind of fading through till it was the artist herself thinking just kind of in a more American style of dress, saying, and I think her artist statement was, you know, it has been lost and projected, but it is still me. So I think there's a lot of nuance there.
Great.
And CET, one of the programs that Ching mentioned in Shanghai, they have programs in other areas as well, and they have a whole archive of heritage students, like resources on adjusting and feeling like you said, sort of a stranger in a familiar place, so to speak. So those are really helpful resources for any heritage students interested in studying abroad.
Wonderful. Anything else that you all would like to share about healing rituals that you've been a part of? Or okay, so I really want to thank you all for being here today, for being a part of this healing ritual from around the world, from being part of our Hobichi here in honor of where we are in New Orleans and this and the traditions of the Choctaw Nations. And I hope you'll continue to think about rituals from around the world and in your home location for your own healing in this moment of the pandemic as we move forward. So thanks, everybody. Good to see you. Bye.